afternoon. Thank you all for coming and welcome to St. Thomas's Chapel of St. Anthony. If you're a guest, we're very pleased to have you here. We're also very honored today as we begin the Triduum and the Passion of Christ to have Jim Fanning here, an expert on the Shroud of Turin, which I consider to be maybe the most important, obviously subjective, relic we have in the Catholic Church. For me, it was a personal movement in my heart, the Holy Spirit calling me back, to a deeper relationship with Christ. I do personally, I'm sure Jim will attest more to this than I ever could, to the physical proof of Christ's resurrection on earth that we have. I mean, there's so much we can learn from it every single day. So with that, I'd like to thank Jim Fanning for coming to speak with us, and I will now pass it over to him.
Okay, thank you. He's been great. He's been very helpful. He's been very supportive, and the interest in the Shroud sometimes is overwhelming, sometimes underwhelming, but it is what it is. But I want you to never forget my friend Russ Briot. I have some material that I'm going to give to you that we'll work through together. He lives outside of Atlanta, and he's shroudencounter.com. And he's been giving talks on the cloth for 30 years. And he really, really knows it. I mean, he knows all the Shroudies. He knows there are people that study the Shroud. They're called Shroudies. And he gathers a lot of information. And he's on a number of TV programs, national programs. His name is Russ Briot, and he produces Shroud Encounter. If you go on the internet, you'll look for him, and you'll be rewarded with all he has to do. But it's an incredible thing. We first start with, hopefully this is helpful to gain greater insight into your spiritual life. And post-crucifixion scriptures I have right here. I was going to have somebody read them, but we're going back to what happened in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. And Matthew says, so Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. Mark 15:45, when Pilate learned that Jesus was dead, he granted the body to Joseph of Arimathea. And Joseph brought a linen cloth, taking down the body, wrapped it in the linen cloth. Luke, then Joseph took the body down, wrapped it in a linen cloth, and laid it in a tomb where no one had ever been. And John, then Joseph, it's interesting, someone helps John. John mentions another name here. Then Joseph of Arimathea came, and Pilate gave him permission to take the body down. Nicodemus also came. So John is the only one that mentions Nicodemus. Came and bringing myrrhs, aloes, they took the body down, wrapped it in linen, and with the garden there was a new tomb in which no one had laid, and the tomb was nearby. They laid Jesus there. Anyhow, so it happened. Now, is this anything related to the cloth? When we see this, a linen cloth, it's a Jewish cloth. It has all kinds of, and this shroud, we're going to talk about the shroud now, it has all the hallmarks of a Jewish linen cloth, very expensive Jewish linen cloth. Nicodemus, maybe got into the sanctuary or the vestibule and got a cloth and used that. It was very, very elaborate cloth, and there's some pictures in the back about it. But we're going to go over here. Later on, if you want to come and take a look here, this is the history of the shroud. And here's Christ being taken down. And this is the way he was laid in the tomb. There's the tomb. And later on, when we finish, you might want to come up and take a closer look at this. The gospel of how it was moved. Odessa, then on up into France, and from France to Italy. And it's been there ever since. You see this is the cloth here. I don't know if you can see this. I'll give you copies. I have copies of this to give to you. The cloth was folded 6 times over, and this is why they're always asking, what are these patches, Mr. Fanning? What are these patches all about? So I try to talk about that first and get that out of the way. These triangular patches were from the fire. 1534. It was in a reliquary, and the silver melted and burned off all the corners. But having it been folded 6 times, you can see what happened there. So the Sisters of St. Clair, the sisters were hard at work. They patched those holes that were made there. And there's other little markings. So you can see that. I have a copy of that if you want to take it with you. And here's the shroud moving from Constantinople, then up to France, and then to Italy. Yes. All of this here, if you want to take a look at it later on. And this is Dr. Alan Wanger's. Then we finish, you might want to come up and take a look at this. Dr. Alan Wanger is the most incredible guy. He studied the shroud for many, many years. We went all over Dade County giving talks on the shroud, all the high schools. And he did extensive work and proved the flowers and all kinds of information he got on the cloth. And he showed how the cloth, the image of Christ on the cloth, very similar to the pancreator, which is in St. Catherine's Monastery. He made that connection. And let me show you some of the books. This is some of the ugly stuff. You want to take a look at that, and that's over there. Let me take a look. Let's take a look at this for a minute. If you want to pass these out. And we'll work through this. This is the guy that should be canonized by the Catholic Church. Who's this? Dr. Pierre Barbet, French medical doctor, down in the cellar trying to nail cadavers to the wall, and his children were wondering, what's the matter with that guy? He was trying to show how a man could be crucified and the body would stay up on the cross. He wrote this in 1933 in French, and started the whole thing going. Then there's this is a reissue. This was done maybe 15 years ago. I had a whole box of these, and they're all gone. Fort Collins had a sale on these. And then recently, if you really want to get involved in the shroud, this is the release. This is about $9 on Amazon.com. This is the most incredible book that was ever written. There's a lot of people studying the shroud. There's a whole bunch of people that are trying to disprove it. There's amazing people, a number of people trying to disprove it. Oh, I could talk about that for a long time, but I won't go there. And then, of course, there are other people that study it and try to verify what's going on, and they do. And they are very successful. This is Dr. John Heller. He's a blood chemist, and determined that the blood on the cloth was that of a human being. It was all kinds of, this is paint. That went on for a long, long time. It's paint, but no. It's human blood. And he proved that. In 1978, we'll get to that. They had the Shirp committee that studied the cloth intensively. First time they ever got really a chance to look at it. That was 1978. That's a long time ago. Here's Dr. Alan Wanger. This is hard to get a hold of one of these things. He and his wife spent their whole life. He was a missionary, and then he was a professor at Duke University, and then spent the rest of his life doing with this. And got to know all the really important people in the shroud, really important people, and passed away recently. And I went up to his place, and he showed me it's amazing what he had. He proved all kinds of things. The flowers that bloomed, they were found flowers on the cloth. They said, no, Alan, you got to be kidding. There were flowers. He proved it. And he did a lot of other things. He got a wonderful book out. And this is Kenneth Stevenson. He's got a wonderful book. He was part of that original group that went to Turin. And this is the book of all books here. This is Mark Antonati. I met this guy a few times. He's been 17 years writing this book. What is he called the Resurrection of the Shroud for? Because in 1988, a lot of devious people did a lot of devious things, and they had an agenda to prove that the cloth was a medieval cloth. And they spent 17 years writing this book. But it's a wonderful book. It's called The Resurrection of the Shroud by Mark Antonati. Then Catholic priest up in New England. I don't know where he is now or what's going on. Victorio Goreria. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. He wrote a wonderful little book. Wonderful little book if you want to get a basic idea of. He covers most of the basic stuff. And this is my friend Joe Marino. He finally says, I got to write a book. Everyone else is writing a book. Joe Marino and his wife, and I know the man well, was the man that proved what they did in 1988 was fraudulent. Yeah. He wrote this book, and now he's finishing up another book, 600 pages. What's he doing with? It's so important. So important. Verification of crucifixion, verification of resurrection. That's incredibly important. So I got to get a copy of his new book. There's other books here. This I'll just mention for a second. Another time. This is Sacred Blood, Sacred Image. This wonderful lady, Janice Bennett. Spanish lady, writer, thinker. She says, there's this cloth in Oviedo, Spain. It's a cloth that covered the face of Christ. It was not a napkin, it was a head cloth. 34 inches by 21 inches. And it was wrapped around his head. His head was so beaten, so beyond, like the scripture says. So it was a necessary thing, a functional thing. And this was applied to his head, around his head, wrapped around his head, tied in the back, and it was there while he was on the cross. Then when he came down, this was removed. And that's in the tomb. According to the gospel, it was in the tomb. Okay, let's go with this, please. Okay, we ready? Here, give her a big one, please. Yeah. Oh, everybody got one? Oh, well, let's go. What are we waiting for? This is the good part. Okay. What's the shroud? We did that one, okay? There's a faint image of a bearded crucified man with blood stains that match the wounds of crucifixion suffered by Jesus of Nazareth as recorded in all four Gospels. So again, his website is shroudencounter.com. It's been in Turin, Italy since 1578 for over 40 years. Prior to that was in France for 200 years, beginning in 1356. It was preserved and revered for centuries as the actual burial cloth that wrapped Jesus as recorded in the Bible. It was owned in 1450, 1952 by the royal Savoy family under the former king of Italy, Umberto II. He passed away and willed it to the current living pope. That was 1981. So it was in private hands until then, and it was donated to the church. So the church is custodian. The Pope is really the one who says what happens with the shroud, the Pope. He only. The shroud has been displayed for numerous public exhibitions over the last 650 years, while in Italy, the Catholic Church acted as custodian of the cloth, even though it is officially owned by the Savoys. Well, that's not quite true. It's the church, it belongs to the church. The history prior to the arrival in France is not continuous, and therefore critics have alleged it is the work of a medieval artist. Now that artist thing, that went on for years, and there was so many people that said, so many people that came up and said, no, it's a painting, which has been disproved. However, a key document called the Hungarian Pray manuscript is dated from 1192 and confirms the shroud was in Constantinople and was stolen by crusaders during the Fourth Crusade. This key document bridges the gap between 1204 and 1356, when the shroud's whereabouts was in question. Ian Wilson, I didn't bring his book, but he writes a whole book about the history of the shroud and how it moved through history, and it's as far as shroud people are concerned, it's pretty well verified. This finding is monumental because it validates a historical trail to at least the year 525, when the image not made by hands was discovered in Edessa in southern Turkey. It became the genesis for all Byzantine icon images of Christ that followed. And Alan Wenger did a tremendous amount of work on those icons. It's also known that the true likeness, many scholars, it is also known as the true likeness. Many scholars believe that the shroud and the Edessa image are one and the same. Two coins were minted in 692 under the reign of Emperor Justinian II. They were the first coins ever minted with the image of Christ and appear to be based on the shroud image as indicated by 180 matching points of congruence between the shroud image and the coin image. That's Alan Wanger's work. In 944, the cloth was taken from Edessa to Constantinople. The sermon delivered by Gregory, the archdeacon of the Hagia Sophia, clearly describes a full body image on the linen. So let's jump down here a little bit. We got a lot here. Okay, let's jump. So the history is pretty well established as far as a lot of people that are followers of the Shroud. Let's take a look at the science on the next page, if you would, with me. 1898, that was the year that things started to happen. Prior to that, it was just the cloth. Prior to that, it was just, I have some pictures of the original image, and you can't see anything. You have to stand back 6 feet, and then you sort of very, very faint. No wonder they didn't make much of it. But Secunda Pia, amateur photographer, they had photography invented, and they used to bring it out at all the weddings and hang it on them. It was a relic. It was a very important relic. He snuck in there and took a picture of it. Voila! Everything negative becomes positive, positive becomes negative. And the distinctiveness of the image is much more real. And he was discredited. They thought this guy didn't know what he was doing. So these first pictures led to the discovery that the image on the cloth is actually a negative. The image becomes positive in a photographic negative. This discovery startled the scientific community and stimulated worldwide interest. And right off the bat, people are saying, this is just ridiculous. This just can't be. This just can't be. So Giuseppe comes by, and Secunda Pia died, and he was discredited for all this time. Finally, 30 years later, Giuseppe photographs the shroud again with more advanced film technology, confirming that the shroud is indeed a negative image. Copies of Henry's photos were circulated throughout the world, prompting more scientific interest and inquiry. Monsignor Ricci, he's not in here. Wonderful Catholic man. He's the guy that brought it to America, Monsignor Ricci. He got in connection with some people that had some finances, and he just pushed it. He had been in Italy, and he saw the shroud, and he just one man show. He got the shroud going in the United States. His name is not here. So Pierre Barbet, a prominent French surgeon, published a doctor at Calvary. I showed you that. Documented 15 years medical research on the shroud. He described the physiology and the pathology of the man in the shroud as anatomically perfect. And then we got Max Fry. These are just the highlights. There's so many other people. A wonderful man. I got a lot of his works. And of course, he wrote in French. He's a French surgeon. Published a doctor at Calvary, 15 years of medical research. Then Max Fry, 1973. People from all different European backgrounds. He was a criminologist and was given permission to take dust. He just took sticky tapes. When they went in there, he just put, this is before 78, he just got tape and put it on the cloth, and whoop, up come stuff. It's called pollen. You can't see it. Lasts hundreds of years, thousands of years. Pollen doesn't. It's a very unusual substance, but it shows you a trail. The pollen comes from a plant, and from the pollen you can tell what plant it is and where that plant grows in the world. He discovered 22 pollen species from plants that are unique to areas around Constantinople and Edessa, and 7 pollen species that are plants common only to Israel. The pollen trail appears to corroborate the historical trail. And then the scientists get into the act. John Jackson, he's still at it. Eric Jumper, I don't know if he's still alive now, using a VP8 analyzer designed for the space program, discovered that the shroud image contained encoded 3D data, not formed in ordinary reflected light photographs. This idea that was 3D was discovered. So 1898, they discovered it was a photograph, and then they discovered that it had 3D characteristics. Then the big year for the Shroud was 1978. Shroud was on public exhibit for the first time since 1933 and was displayed for 6 weeks. At the close of the exhibit, 24 scientists, most of them are dead now, most of them wrote books, wonderful books comprising the Shroud Turin research project called STIRP, analyzed the Shroud for 5 continuous days. That's all they were going to get. And they come back up this huge truck with 40 boxes of scientific equipment, and they say, oh, wait a second, wait. Oh, you got to pay the fee. There's an entrance fee. There's some kind of a tax. You're in Italy now. Enormous amount of money they had to pay. You know what they did? They paid it. They went forward. They were scientists. In 1980, the National Geographic magazine published a landmark article on the Shroud. One of the most perplexing, they keep doing this, they keep talking about enigmas and perplexing, and it's sad. That's what they do. Alan Wanger, I was reading the other day, an article he wrote to National Geographic was later on going to say it was Leonardo da Vinci. Oh, he was upset. He was upset. A 4-page article, letter he wrote to National Geographic. So it happens. They just throw it under the bus. It's unfortunate. Perplexing enigmas. That's the point of view. Okay, now we go down to Walter Macron. He was another guy, anti-Shroud guy, and he come up with so much stuff, and he just wouldn't go to the meetings after a while because all the Shroud people were saying, this guy knows what he's talking about. So he just faded in. He died shortly, a couple of years ago. This is a very important year, 1981. After 3 years analyzing the data of the Shroud Turin research project, STIRP made their findings public at an international conference in New England, Connecticut. All the scientists agreed upon the following statement. We can conclude, for now, that the Shroud image is that of a real human form, of a scourged, crucified man. It's not the product of an artist. Why that put in there? But they've been doing that for 40 years, but it was an artist. Anyhow, the blood stains are composed of hemoglobin and give a positive test for serum albumin. Now, here's the bad news. That was the good news. 81 was the good news. 88 was the bad news. The Shroud was carbon dated by 3 labs in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona. They indicated a date range from 1260 to 1390, indicating the clock was only about 700 years old. This earth-shattering news came to contradict the conclusions of STIRP. Well, that's what Joe Marino did. Joe Marino, and a lot of the Shroud people said I remember talking to the bishop. I think he went out to Orlando. I went to the West Coast after a while. Bishop Nevin, I think his name was Bishop Nevin. Nice man. I met with him. He says, Mr. Fanning, they proved that it's medieval. What are you going to do? I tried. And anyhow, but I still talk about it, and I got into a lot of schools. It's just unfortunate. Just really unfortunate. So they did a lot of things that they shouldn't have done, and I don't want to dwell on it. It's been, what they did was just not accurate. Alan Wanger became friends with Anim Danin, a prominent Israeli botanist and a professor at Hebrew University, confirmed the presence of flower images on the Shroud. He verified 28 different pollen species and plant images. They're among plants and grow only around Jerusalem. That's some of the stuff that I took when I was up in his basement. His whole cellar was, both of them had passed away, he and his wife. Incredible stuff that he found. He developed polarized image overlay technique, which, see, these guys are pretty smart guys, and showed that the pancreator was based on the Shroud. And they said, oh, I don't think so. Well, he was proven correct. Okay, let's take a look here. That's Danin. See, Danin has a Shroud exhibit in, Anthony, he has a Shroud exhibit in Israel right now. He's a Jewish man. Anyhow, what do we got going here next? So here we go. We got to do this. Now do this. Here. Did you get these? Okay. Should have done this first. Here we go. This again, courtesy of Russ Breon. If you want to take this with you, you can. Okay. Yeah. Got one? Okay. One for this lady over there. That's sweet lady over there. There you go. Probably the best way to look at this right now is like this. The best way to look at it is like this. You got the orientation going on here, and then we read. Okay. Water stains, I mean, the letters are water stains, parallel lines, that kind of stuff is not, I don't know how much time we have, Anthony, but I want to just switch over to the bottom, okay? The one on top, that's a natural, that's what they, and it's an enhancement, it's a major enhancement, what they saw in Italy. And the one on the bottom, what's the one on the bottom? That's the picture, that's the picture. And negative is positive, positive is negative, left is right, right is left. That's the way it is in a photograph. So if we would, let's proceed. What's number one there? Anthony, what's number one? Blood by feet, you see it? I use the lower one because it's more clear. Of course, white is black and black is white. What's that white stuff? Or that brown stuff in there? What's that? What is that? Blood. Blood. Number two? Somebody, what's number two? What was it? Well, is that really what happened? Is that really accurate? Yeah. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Now, you crucify somebody through the wrist, you sever the median nerve, and that's just unbelievably painful. You know, I never mentioned this before. When I was at Holy Cross, I had something happen to me. I still remember it. Something went through my palm. I never mentioned that to anyone before. I still remember that pain. I don't feel it, but that was 60 years ago. But it went through here. There's a little cavity here in your wrist, if you can find the little, if you want to go in biology here. Right here, there's a little cavity in your wrist, right here. These people, they crucified thousands of people. They know how to do it. You go right through here, you sever the median nerve. It's enormous pain, pain that you can't believe. But it does the job. That's what the people that study the physiology of the crucifixion, that's how he was affixed to the cross by this nails through that spot. But when it goes through there, the thumbs fall limp and you lose all control of the thumbs. So what happens? It falls in. So the thumbs are there, but guess what? You can't see them. So no thumbs is not quite accurate, but it's important to see that there are no thumbs there. What about number three? What's number three? Regina, what's number three? What? Yeah, we talked about that. I just talked about it. Number four is what? What's number four?
Blood on arm.
This Italian woman lady, she's a woman, person, a scientist that studied the flow of these markings on the arms, and it proved that this individual raised himself up and dropped down, raised himself up and dropped. This man was crucified on the cross. There's two different, he raised himself up so he could breathe. It's incredibly precise. Number five is really the most startling thing of all. Number five, what's number five, Shrutina?
Side one.
Side what?
One.
Side wound, side wound. Now, Dr. John Heller discovered that all the blood on this man was from a live person. The blood from the side wound is from a dead person. blood separates out into a clear liquid and plasma. That's what happens. That's the physiology of blood. That's what John said. He wasn't a chemist. He wasn't a blood chemist, but that's what he saw. He saw blood and water. This man of the shroud, had issuing from his side that indicates he was dead when that wound was made. Number 6, the face here, the blood on the forehead. Number 8, punctures of the crown. This just is mind-boggling what they did there. They have these little crowns, the holy cards have. Well, no. He had a cap, like a baseball cap, and it was forced onto his head. And I didn't bring. Oh my God! Anthony, I was in Israel, and I collected some of the stuff that was used to make that crown, and I didn't bring it. But I was in Israel twice, and the second time I was going to get some, and I got it. They said, "You can't take this out of Israel." I got it. Packed it in my suitcase. But it's all matty now. But incredible. I cut myself collecting it. My wife said, "Don't do that, Jim. Don't do that." I said, "I'm going to do it." It's incredibly sharp. And it only grows in that area of Jerusalem. That's the only place in the world it grows. So that brings the cloth right back to Jerusalem. Just incredible. And the wounds on his head were just... You see, the back, number 8. Georgina, what's number 8? Yeah, that was it. Yes. And number 9, honey, number 9. Scourge marks. There's about 120 of them. 120. You count them all. The legs, back of the legs. It's just okay. Anyhow, it's just incredible. Anyhow, that's, I got a few more things that if you want to take a look at. Any questions at this point? We covered this. This one I have. This, Russ made this little thing up. It's called proof of purchase. It's a nice, cute little thing. Now, well, I won't say cute. That's not the wrong word. That's the wrong word. Wrong word to use. Wrong word to use. Give everybody one of these, honey, please. Let's do this first. Before we go any further. Yeah, there's some of these around. Let's do that little one. He's a wonderful man, and I attribute a lot of the stuff that I use to him. Yes. Yeah, there should be some in the back there. There should be. No, wait. Let's see. Thank you for helping. Okay, I need one. So we'll run through this very quickly. And this you can take this with you also, okay? There's 4 common words used to describe the Shroud of Turin: artifact, mystery, relic, symbol. Artifact, no. Artifact, no, it's not an artifact. That's something made by human hands. Mystery, yes. Relic, yes. Symbol, there's a lot of this. Icon, this is an icon, and it's something about, I don't like that word either. I like mystery, I like relic, yes. All these words are fine, but they fail to convey its purpose or function. Need a new concept. Let's look at 4 more words at the scripture. Bought, purchased, redeemed, ransomed. These words describe what Jesus accomplished for us at the cross. What do they all mean? They're all words of transaction. A transaction has occurred. A payment has been made on our behalf. When you go to the store and purchase anything, what does the cashier give you? A receipt. What is a receipt? Proof of purchase. What's on the receipt? The price that was paid. Peter and John ran to the empty tomb and saw the linen cloth lying there. What did they see? According to Russ, they saw a receipt. Proof of purchase. When they opened the shroud up, what did they see? The price that was paid. In fact, the shroud is an itemized receipt documenting everything that was paid. Blood from crown of thorns, pierced in the side, wounds in wrists and feet, severe scourging, bruises on the face, abrasions on the knees. Everything that was paid to purchase their salvation is on the receipt. What does it mean? We've been purchased. We belong to Christ. That's if we believe. We have a receipt stamped in blood which says paid in full. So I said, Russ, it's a receipt. It's a receipt. But if a person is not a believer, then it's only a sign. It's only a sign. Believers, this is what? A receipt. But if they don't believe in Jesus, then it's a sign. Okay, anyhow, we're going to go with one last thing. Where is it here? This is detailed, and again, this is something that we'll try to work through here. Are we ready? Did you pass these out? Sometimes I leave and I never even mention this. Probably the most important thing in the whole presentation. This looks a little strange, but I should make more copies of it. This is ultraviolet. This is a very, very sophisticated picture of the shroud. You can see all the squares, the triangles. Can you see the image? No, not there. Not there. What's going on? Where's the image? Take a look, Bob. Pass it back. Take a hold of it. Pass it back, please. It's very simple. It should be mentioned. The shroud. The image on the cloth is dehydrated material. It's the absence of cloth. It's the absence of cloth that makes the picture, that makes the image. I read that, I thought, this is unbelievable. I talk about painting, that's ridiculous. The absence of the cloth makes the picture. Now, we read earlier how they did these experiments, and a nanosecond of nuclear power created something similar to what the shroud was. So what do we have? Most significant event in all human history. The human body became spiritual. Never before, never again. It's the most significant event in all of human history. For those who believe. Okay, a lot of times we give a talk on that. Not even mentioned, but it's extremely important. Okay, now this little thing, we'll work through this a little bit. As long as we have time, Anthony, we have time for this? We have time? Okay, let's take a look. We're going to move quickly here. People are very interested in CSI. Oh my, CSI. They got 7 dozen different CSIs. I could never watch no interest in CSIs. People studying criminology and all this. I have no interest in that. But if it deals with the crucifixion, resurrection, then, it's got my attention. Let's just jump down here. Just jump all this other stuff we got. All right, let's jump over here on page, if you don't mind. You can read this or take this with you if you want. Top of page 3, the image. Top of page 3, the image. Are we there? The image is altogether different. Are we there? When the blood penetrates the cloth and can be seen on the reverse side, the image is purely superficial and resides on only the top 1 or 2 microfibers, about 1% of a single red. Oh, this is just... The extreme superficiality of the image is just one of its remarkable attributes. For some reason, the image on the cloth is a negative that appears as a positive image in a photonegative. The image also contains distance information. The closer the cloth is to the body, the darker the image. The farther from the body, the lighter the image. That's another whole thing you can spend a lot of time with. Lights and darks are not due to any substances applied to the cloth. There's no visible trace of paint, ink, dye, pigmentation, or stain. There's no variation in color. Where the image appears lighter or dark, it's simply due to a greater or lesser concentration of the individual fibers that were somehow affected by whatever caused the image. The order of events suggests that the blood, this is extremely important, the order of events suggests the blood on the cloth first, followed by the image, as there was no image under the blood. That's so significant. It also supports the biblical account. It appears that direct contact with the corpse only explains the blood. Does not explain the image, which seems to be the result of some other process. Some wondered if a radiant energy mechanism could be responsible, heat, light, or radiation of some kind. No one knows for sure. Experiments with the ultraviolet excimer laser demonstrate that a 40 nanosecond burst against a control sample of linen contrasts the same depth and coloration as seen on the shroud. I mentioned that a little earlier, yes. How old is it? We went all through that stuff. Let's jump down. The central question, is the shroud a document of crucifixion and resurrection? Science cannot make that determination, for it is not the work of an artist, forensic analyst of the body and blood chemistry. Both indicate that the image is most likely that of a man who suffered and died from crucifixion. So, we're at the bottom of page 4. Perhaps the shroud asked the same question Jesus asked of Peter. Who do you say that I am? We're over on page 5 now. Is there a message in the mystery? Why has the shroud been preserved for all these centuries? Why was it revealed to the world through photography and science? We're a world of images now. It was words. It was images then words. Now images seem to be everything now. Now, the 21st century, we communicate more with images than we do with words. Was it specifically preserved for this time in your ministry? We have entered a highly skeptical age where all religion come under the scrutiny, and Christianity in particular is under the attack by persuasive secularism and aggressive new atheism. Perhaps there's no better time than now for the shroud to come to the forefront. So I'm going to leave this to the rest of you. You can take it with you. And it's just a marvelous, incredible thing that if you want to read Russ, what he has to say there, past, present, and future. Over on page 8, we have St. Thomas there. The great doubter became the great, great saint. Yes. It talks about the message passed. So it's really, really well done. Really well done. So you can take that with you as a, yes. Now if you would join with me last year, page 14. Jump over to 14. Very, very important. Page 14. Are we there? Page 14? No, page 14. In your booklet here. The best gift ever. This is very important. What did they receive? A free gift. Shroud is not the gift. Jesus is the gift. God the Father is the gift of the gift. Is the giver of the gift. Receipt simply documents that a gift was indeed given. We don't worship a receipt. The shroud, however, clearly demonstrate the awesome price that was paid. So if you want to join with me on page 14, are you on page 14 there? The bottom? You want to join with me? Dear Heavenly Father, are we there? Are we there? You join with me? Dear Heavenly Father? Can we say it together? Dear Heavenly Father? to live a life pleasing to you, Lord. Thank you for your kind attention, okay? I hope you'll continue your interest in the Shroud and check on Russ. I'll tell him that we use his materials again. This is really the first time I used it extensively, but I was down in Palmetto Bay the other night, and I used a little bit of this. Very nice group, Father Dan. Yeah, it's very important. And well, many priests are enthusiastic and some not so much. But don't get caught in that cloth stuff. No, it's there. We don't need that. We don't need that. Who am I to say what I need and I don't need? If God, then I keep forgetting to say this. Perhaps God the Father wanted humanity to see how his son suffered. Perhaps. My idea. So, now photography, 2,000 years later, we can find out how graphically our sin is a big deal, and the holiness of God is beyond comprehension. Holiness of God is, I'm into this holiness of God stuff now. It's just, and this sin stuff is serious stuff. But people seem to be on another planet when it comes to this stuff. They just don't take it seriously. When I was in high school, I went to a Scranton Prep, Pennsylvania, the Jesuits. And great men. But it's all about bringing. And Father Cedric, who knows about, Father Cedric? Anybody know Father Cedric? I've been talking to him. He's on 7 o'clock, and the only Catholic priest on Sunday morning. Yeah, he's a marvelous guy. Roman Catholic priest, the only guy on Protestant TV. Father Cedric, 7 o'clock, Sunday morning. He's just really good, really good. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Anything I ever took away from the Shroud, it was just, it's clearly the image of a crucified man, which perfectly correlates to the Gospels, which obviously anybody could have drawn or painted, what have you, but we know it wasn't. Right? Those are the takeaways. This is an image that, to date, we have no explanation besides nanonuclear light. Right? Similar to a photocopy is how a photocopy machine, which obviously we don't have the technology to be so precise. But it's an image that the more you look into it, the more you just question the passion, and you see, Christ's pain, suffering, ultimately like as Jim said, his gift to us in his suffering and redemption of our sins. So Jim, thank you again for being here. I invite anybody to come up to look at the images a little further, and have a blessed Holy Week. Thank you.
A lot of these things I made up recently. If you want to take a look at them, that's fine. Whatever you're interested in. Okay. Well, everyone is a little different. Oh, that was different.